Mental illness. 20% of Australians aged 16 to 85 will experience some form of it in any given year. Out of these people, over half of them will not access any form of mental health treatment. And each day, 36 people will attempt to take their own life. 6 of these will be successful. The number of suicide attempts and fatalities on train lines and stations is ever rising, but there's a forgotten statistic when it comes to these unfortunate events: the drivers and guards of the train itself. Naomi Frauenfelder is the Executive Director of TrackSafe, which is a world-first charity initiative that aims to help rail employees with the trauma that they face.
But our understanding is there's about 300 suicide attempts on rail every year and about 100 result in fatality. So yeah, it's really tragic, but unfortunately some rail staff are exposed to incidents on the network. So it could be suicide or trespass or level crossing incidents. And it's not just train drivers, but guards, station staff, security personnel. There's actually a range of roles within rail where you could be exposed to trauma.
Train staff who have gone through traumatic experiences have been linked with similar mental health issues of those who have gone to war, such as severe depression and PTSD. This only heightens the need for TrackSafe to provide adequate support.
Saying our drivers and other staff are traumatised, we need to be making sure we're doing everything within our power to support them as best we possibly can and also try to reduce these incidents. And so organisations like Sydney Trains have things like trauma training for staff. So this is around resilience and mental health, and you might be exposed to something like this, and if you are, this is when to seek help.
Dan Banks has worked with Sydney Trains for 12 years and has had to deal with a host of traumatic experiences.
For me, I've seen a few, like 2 pretty horrific incidents, fatalities. And as I said, for me, it was a shock. Like, I'm not saying it wasn't a shock and it wasn't heavy at the time, but it just depends on the way you deal with it. And for me, I accepted it as part of my job, and I sort of compartmentalised it as, you know, it's not great, but I sort of knew that this was a potential, you know, to happen.
Dan and his fellow colleagues have worked alongside organisations such as TrackSafe to enforce a helpful work environment that promotes positive coping mechanisms for their experiences.
Basically, what drivers like to do if they're exposed to those sorts of things is get it off their chest, have a chat to it about it with other drivers, you know what I mean, make it like it's a group thing. So I think it helps spread the load because everyone's got some, you know, mutual feedback to put into it and sort of help. It's like a brotherhood, sisterhood, you know, like because we all experience similar things, you know, we all are usually okay to talk about it with one another. Even if you don't know the person by name or whatever, if you just come in and start talking about it, people are, you know, they generally chuck into the conversation.
Completely curing mental health issues with train staff will not be an instant fix, but it's something Naomi and Dan are working towards, one ride at a time.
It's going to take time for us to significantly reduce incidents, so we want to make sure our train drivers and other staff are equipped to deal with them as best they can.
Lewis Willoughby, Central News.